Okay, so I'm going to let you talk a little bit about yourself because we've been working together since 2019, basically. But you've had a journey, so give us a little bit about this this
Has
first
been a
slide.
journey. Well, so I started off, man, I did not finish college. I also was a high school graduate, and started off in radio, television, and film, and then I went into property management because my grandmother told me once she owned four houses, and she said that when you grow up, you need to get real estate, but she never told me how to do it. So I ended up working for Lincoln Property Company and doing all kinds of apartment work to try to understand the business a little bit. And so I knew how to do, or I knew what to do. I just didn't have a clue how to.
So she just teased you and showed
She
you that
did.
this is the way to go, but I'm not going to show you what to do.
She
All
managed
right.
them herself. She made deals with, the tenants to take money out of rent to fix stuff up. So she was doing it all. She was probably 75 at the time. I mean, yeah. So
Well,
she
good.
was.
She sparked that in you at
She
least.
did. She did.
Okay.
But no one else in my family had a clue how to do that. So I bought my first property in 2012, but it was quite a journey. Before I got there, I went to every real estate thing you could imagine. In the hotels, where they have those real estate guys that come by and they yell and scream at you like you're stupid. So I had those guys, and I probably spent a ton of money in books and CDs and all of that. And then I tiptoed around lifestyles. I saw Dale at a convention once, and I was like, this guy's different. And so I tiptoed for about 2 years. I was probably 2010, and you were 2011. So 2012, I became a member, and then Lynn, who was a different last name at one point. So she was my mentor and
Yeah,
helped me with that first property.
She's an executive vice president now. Many of you know of her, but she was your single-family
She
mentor
was
back
my
then.
first mentor and was really
Absolutely.
helpful. Yeah, so I got the first property in 2012 in Mesquite.
Cool.
It was probably about $600 a month in revenue, and I let that sit for a while. So we'll cover that one in a second. So then,
And this is what makes
little bit
your
closer?
journey
Okay.
very interesting is the fact that he bought his first property in 2012, and we are highlighting today his most recent property that he just bought in May of this year, so 3 months ago.
I should also say I spent $16,000 out of pocket, so I saved hard money for that.
Oh, on the first one.
Yeah, on the first one.
Yep,
yeah.
we'll get the
So this is the second one. I just bought this year, a couple of months ago, maybe in June, in San Antonio. Sorry, man. I took one of yours. Through Lifestyles, this was a property out in San Antonio. I drove out there, of course, but I didn't have to. I just did it because I had the time. I have a full team out there, thanks to Lifestyles. There's an entire team that helped me put that together. And so I bought it through the realtor, through the San Antonio property. And so I was in control of the decision the entire time. I got the numbers. In fact, honestly, I was in the middle of a really boring corporate conference call. And when I finished, I told Evan, I said, I think I just bought a property. I'm
Awesome.
not sure. Yeah, I was super bored. I was like, I have nothing else to do. Let's buy a property today.
So you were making money two ways that day, right?
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
W-2 and growing
Yeah.
your real estate.
And I
okay?
have no idea what was talked about in the conference call. So, but yeah. So then you could flip to this is,
Nope.
oh, yeah, I didn't see that you went to that. So this is the before and after pictures. You can see that it wasn't in bad shape. It really wasn't. The only problem was that whoever had it before decided to do a foundation lift, and they took all the dirt out and put sand in instead, which was interesting. So it was stable, but it was clearly off. So we had to pull all the sand out, put the dirt in. That was probably the toughest part. I did some upgrades, probably a little bit more than I should have, but I still went with granite in the kitchen and the bathroom. French doors redid, you can see the kitchen. And then, of course, painted the cabinets. That was a big piece so that it looked more current. But it was a pretty simple makeover for the most part.
Well, yeah, it was 1985 build,
Yeah.
so it was decent, but you just kind of brought it up to today's standards. You didn't go HGTV on us and try to make it a flip.
No, the big piece was also taking those window units out of the they had window units.
Oh,
on the
yeah,
second
that
floor.
was in the front.
So yeah, so we had to work on that, but yeah, that was it on that one. So these are the numbers. It was I bought it for 150. It was a wholesale deal again through the realtor here, and 203 is what it was appraised for. 53 in equity, as you can tell, not bad. So I thought it was a pretty good opportunity. I spent $30,000 in rehab costs, $7,000 out of pocket, and that gives me about a $15,000 equity capture. Cash out of pocket is 37, but that not really. Actually, the interesting thing about that is, if you remember the $16,000 from the first house in Mesquite, I sat on that house for years, and I explain that in a minute. But I called Lori, and I said, Lori, I'm trying to figure out how to get to my next house, and I've saved some money, but it's not enough. And she goes, why are you sitting on the equity in the first house? I said, Lori, you don't understand how this works. And so she's like, no, let's look at the numbers. And so by the end of that call, I was like, okay, I went to the bank, got the money out from the equity, and $16,000 really has now bought me 2 houses, and I have enough money to buy a third one with that money.
And when you pulled that money out, because it's a loan, it's not a sale, you pay no taxes on that money.
Bingo.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. So 42% capital gain. Not bad. I'm getting 15.25, way more than we actually thought. In fact, it's funny because it's been since June. If I appraise it now, there's probably about $80,000 in equity in there. But we thought 4.25 was what we were going to see. We actually got 15.25. It was on the market for 1 day. And I was already nervous about that, and by the end of the day, I already had at least. So, to a really great couple. Yeah, so not bad. Cash flow, 9.7% cash on cash return. So I'm
Like
proud
a
of that.
10%. Pretty good.
And really quick for new people watching, can we go back to that slide for a second? Because when the new people are watching, they're a little bit confused on these numbers. So really quick, you see how there's $30,000 to rehab, but his total out of pocket was 37 grand. You're like, well, that doesn't make sense. Did he have to pay for that extra? You used a hard money loan on this one?
Yes.
So just so you know, he used a certain type of loan, and I'll teach you about this weekend. They're going to lend him all the money to buy the property, plus all the money to fix it up. This is the total amount of money he had to come up with 37 grand. Now he has $15,000, so if he sold a house, he'd make an extra 15 grand above his 37,000. I want you all to understand that. That's after he'd get his money back. That's why if you had 37 grand, you made an extra 15 grand. That's a 47% return. Does everybody understand that? Some people get confused on this, so I want to make sure they understood that.
Yeah, and the best thing to me, again, you say out of pocket, it really wasn't. It was $16,000 originally, so it was kind of like free money to me.
He's going by from his one house to the other one, how he's growing, and now he has 2 houses instead of 1 house, both cash flowing.
Yeah, so we're going to go to that slide now because that is one of the things. You became a member, went like gangbuster. You actually started in December of 2011. I looked up your record, so you were just on the cusp of 2011. Bought your first house in February 2012. So boom, you got your education, you took action, you were going like fire. And you were able to buy that house. It was much less out of pocket back then, of course. But you were cash flowing really nicely, like $600. And
that was also a really good deal even then.
Yeah.
I got really lucky, and it was $600. So I literally do not have a key to any of the houses. I used a property management company. I don't deal with any of it. So I'm full-time employed. No headaches. Yeah.
So one of the things that I want to point out with the cash-out refi, we walk him through. Does it make better sense to sell this outright, or will it still be a goose that's laying a golden egg for you? If you keep it and pull some money out, are you still going to be able to make some profit on it? Because must cash flow is the name of the game when
and that was part of our conversation, because I was not quite sure if I needed to pull it. It had been just cash flowing for years. I mean, literally, it sat there making money, and like I said, I didn't do anything. I leased it once while I was in Cambodia for a month. So I mean, like, okay, that sounds like a good deal, and it was done. So yeah, good property. Now there's a big gap.
Yeah, but that bottom line there too is
you move stuff
the
around.
best part. $16,000 initially.
Yeah.
And when you did the cash out refi, you pulled out $80,000.
Yes.
So basically, you are able to get 3 to 4 properties. You keep the original plus 2 to 3 more. So
off the same amount of money. So I remember you just said something, Lori, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
He was able to turn 1 property into 3 making money. Just like Monopoly. You trade into 1 property, you get 3 more. Is that better? Yeah.
Well, so I should also say that I have friends that went through a different model. They thought it was better to pay it all off and get the cash flow.
Right.
So my mind wasn't in the right place until we talked. Even after the first property, it had been a while. So you had to kind of help set me
I think
clear.
I need extra pay for being a life coach.
You do. In fact, I love the coaches have been wonderful. And Lori, I've actually talked with all of them because apparently I needed reinforcements. Because so I've driven a lot. I stand between. I feel like I'm always balancing between the scale of fear and stupid. Like I'm scared to kind of make a choice because I'm going to make the wrong one and it's going to cost me the stupid taxes. So it's like I don't know what to do, and so I end up not doing stuff or get comfortable with where it is.
We all do.
And
Tendency.
Lori is like, let's go. So it was really exactly what I needed to hear at the time, including, I don't think I can do this anymore. I mean, there was all kinds of conversations that we had that were really wonderful to get me going in the right direction. So things happened. There was a big gap between the two properties. I was in the middle of buying a second one. I bought that one in 2012. I was in the middle of buying a second one in 2012 in November, and I had a long-term life partner that died suddenly, unexpectedly. So it kind of threw me for a loop, and I had to pull out of that one. And then I kind of went crazy, spent a bunch of money, and and
Life happens.
Life happens, and so it took me a while to get back on track. Lost some jobs. The economy was crazy. I had money sitting in 2012 queued up, ready to go. In 2020, I'm sorry. 2020 ready to go, and then the pandemic happened, and I lost a job for 6 months.
Yeah, right after I convinced him to take this money out of his rental and go down from $600 a month cash flow to $251, because of course he's got a higher note on it now from pulling out that cash. Then he calls me up and says, "Oh, I just lost my job." And I'm like, "Don't worry, we got to keep moving forward. Let's get a different type of loan."
So the job started again in October. We were ready to go, so I was antsy. It's fun. I wasn't actually having a problem losing the job. I was ready to buy the real estate. That was my biggest upset. Was I'm ready to move forward. I could take some time off, but it messed up my plans. So so life happened, and I think the biggest thing I would say is staying focused and understanding where your end result is, because I was just kind of playing it safe day by day. And it took me a while to get back on track. So once you get off, it takes a while.
Well, you actually even told me, you used the phrase, you like to dip your toes in the water and get a feel for it. And I said, no, I'm going to push you in, you're going to swim, and I'll be there to send you a lifeline.
I have little floaties on.
Yep.
And my floaties would be the coaches.
Yeah,
there was never a point where if I needed something or I had a concern, you weren't there to help out. So I appreciate that.
Well, I've had people do that for me as well, and that's why it's so important.
And this is why I love having mentors like Lori. They're experts in that field. They're going to tell you what you need to hear, not always what you want to hear, not sugarcoat things. Who likes that? Having a real person with you. It really does help. It's really powerful.
Yeah. And so the final numbers really just sitting today is the Mesquite House has some cash flow. You can see about $3,000 still in that, and then the equity capture, $60,000 sitting in equity. San Antonio's 36, and like I said, it's probably $80,000 today, because the equity keeps going up so fast. But 15 is what I'm sitting on now, 75. So in 2 years, my plan is to pull that out again and do this all over again.
Awesome.
So. Keep going and going, and there again, like I said, it might cut into your cash flow on the original one, but as long as it's still within our realm of being a good cash flowing property, we're going to keep it and move on and double the portfolio, double or triple. So, whoops, boy, this thing's touchy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're on, how's this changed your life? Because it's been a big paradigm shift for you. You keep trying to go back there, and we keep trying to pull you over, but when you saw some of these numbers, you were like, wow, that's one of the things he said.
It was
once you put it down on paper.
It was, and I think we tend to go with some habits that we've been taught through the years. And I told you about a story about a friend of mine who he's from Thailand, and he'd moved to North Carolina, met some new friends, and they had all decided they want to go fishing. So they all go to the store, they buy the latest equipment. They spent thousands of dollars on just all this stuff, right? Well, he was raised in Thailand, so he grabbed a stick and some string, right? And so they all go fishing. He was catching fish after fish, and he showed me, I've got pictures of this bucket full of fish, and they didn't catch anything. And I'm like, well, what did you do? I don't understand what happened. He goes, I don't know, I just caught this fish. Did anybody stop and ask you how you caught that fish? He said, no. He said, and I said, well, what did they do? Did you get a stick and a string and start? No, they just kept using the same equipment because that's what they bought, that's what they were invested in, and they just kept. And I'm like, but you came back with fish, they came back with nothing.
Yeah.
And so I thought about that. I was like, so I tend to try to go back to the, buy the kits, go back to the store, go back and do some of the things that I thought were the right things.
What everybody else is doing. And when you told me that story, that's why I said you have to share the story. I've never heard something like that. Story. But that is absolutely why you come to Lifestyles. Find someone who's doing it successfully and follow them. Exactly. It doesn't matter if it's with a stick and a string.
Yeah, where can we buy that stick, by the way?
And there was a risk there, though, because I had to, you have to put away the investment you made and sacrifice that focus on that path that you were going to take to try something that's completely different that's getting results. So it was uncomfortable probably for them. So yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is obviously I do want to retire. Obviously I wanted to do it a long time ago, but in the next 5 years certainly is my goal. And then do some consulting, do my own stuff, whatever I want to do on my own. Travel. I'd like to stay in some other country for a couple of months or a year, and then really just continue growing my wealth. So that's my focus.
That's why it's creating the lifestyle you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was that slide, sorry. Multifamily, I
That's
definitely
okay.
would like to go into multifamily as well. And of course, I'd like to get to 6 to 10 properties first and then jump into multifamily. So that's it for me.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Awesome.
Well,
We're gonna ask
there's
some
more to
questions.
that.
Yeah.
If there's any shout outs you want to give, anybody helped you along the way?
Well, everyone here at Lifestyles has helped me, especially Lori. So thank you very much for all your help. I did have a partner and some team folks out there in San Antonio. Trey is I think he calls himself a crack dealer.
Yeah.
Because he's like
Trey's one of our realtors, lifestyle
he's
realtors in San
amazing.
Antonio.
He is amazing. He's like, once you buy one property, you're just going to call me for another one. I know it. And it's like,
True.
okay, it's like a crack dealer. So, and that's exactly, I said, Trey, I need another one. So yeah, he's amazing. He's amazing.
Now I have a really quick question for you because all these folks in the room are from Dallas.
Yeah.
And you were brave enough to go to a whole nother city 6 hours away in San Antonio Invest. Could you explain to the new folks out there, and it doesn't matter whether you're in California watching or Colorado, 6 hours away in Texas is the same as a couple states away for
It
you
is.
guys. How do you get over that
Yeah.
fear, and how do you do that so the new people watch?
Lori again was a big part of that.
Having
But
a
I think
mentor?
I think part of here's the thing. I'm behind the game. Dallas has now completely been very saturated, and I wanted to move fast.
Okay.
So it was going to take a while in Dallas, and I felt like I needed to broaden up a little bit, which meant look, here's the deal. The model works. I don't care where you go. I'm actually looking at Memphis and Ohio and Cleveland as well. But the secret is having a team. And that's really the secret to this whole thing. So I felt comfortable enough. San Antonio is not that far.
Right.
That with the team in place, I could, with Lifestyles especially, I could move forward. As long as I'm using Lifestyles Quest, I don't really care where the property is.
And that's a software to evaluate deals, but
Yeah.
you can talk more about
Yeah,
that.
it's all applying the model with evaluation and having the team. You do one to the other, doesn't matter where it's located. Now, even here in Dallas, though, we still do have great
Absolutely.
deals because there's
Absolutely.
always death, divorce, taxes, deferred maintenance, anything that's going
Yeah.
to create a discount on a property
And I'm
that we're
always
going to
looking at
snatch up.
Dallas.
But I always tell you, if you want to move ahead faster, cast your net wider
Yeah.
so that you've got more opportunities, so that you're not waiting for a perfect opportunity.
Yeah, and that's what I want to get to everybody out there. I don't care whether you're in California, wherever.
Yeah.
Live where you want to live. Enjoy your lifestyle where you want to live your lifestyle, but invest where it makes sense for you. Look at the numbers. Take the emotions out of it. You got to get over those fears.
Do we have questions
Yeah,
from
questions
the
for
audience?
you guys. Let me grab another microphone.
Right here, Ben. Oh, you doing the mic?
Yeah, I'll do the
Okay.
microphone. I'll get exercise. He's my great question. He was asked questions last month. Okay, Ben, go for it.
Since you now have a house that's like that you bought 8 years ago, to follow the best product, best price, are you going to re-renovate that house some point soon?
Yep, absolutely. So, in fact, that's funny you say that because the Mesquite House is now ready to be updated. So I've got a tenant that's supposed to be their lease expires in October. I'll probably spend about 10 grand, upgrade some of that, and then get a higher rent return. So that's my hope, and appraisal, because I like to get more money out of that.
Any other questions? Here's one from Leo. Let's see, he's a front row guy.
Who'd you use to rehab your San Antonio property?
Yeah, so I used
Question.
Longhorn Investments for hard money. I used AMP and I loved working with AMP for lending. I used home inspections, and then for rehabbing, I used one of the vendors that they had down in San Antonio. And I can't remember the name of the person, but it was just a general contractor that did it very quickly because it was a light turn. Yeah, so it was one of the vendors.
Y'all just look at it online as pictures. We can give you pictures or something.
Did I look at it online? And yes, so we have on the portal, there's a list of all of the vendors.
Yeah.
And then they have rankings, and they have all kinds of feedback from other members. And I made some phone calls and talked to them. I made a connection with them. First of all, it was like, is this the right fit? Do you have time? Can you do it? And what are we looking at? A lot of the deals so when the realtor contacts you, they've already done some of the groundwork for you. And that's why I like using the realtors here at Lifestyles. So they came with the package and said, look, we've already, like, you can get your own vendor to go look at it, but this is what we're estimating based off of our general contractor. And I'm like, okay, well, it makes sense to use them. So
Yeah, with any deal, you're going to start out with some sort of an estimate. You've got to start somewhere. If it looks like a viable deal and that you've had someone put eyes on it, especially when you're afar, that helps. But then you're going to do a little more research and you want to see the property for yourself so that you can design that scope of work and make sure that the contractor's not the one in charge of. And that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
We'll remind you of those steps.
Yeah, and everything can be done through pictures, video. There's ways we do this, and we do this step by step. Everything is systematic, so it mitigates your risk. Just so you understand.
technology has really changed things.
It is.
I mean,
It's really made it a lot
FaceTime-
easier during the pandemic. Absolutely.
Yeah, you could call someone down there and they can FaceTime at a property.
Yeah.
It's just so
And
easy.
I bring that up because when people are further away, they're like, well, what can I do to look at? Well, now we do FaceTime. Now we do video conferences. Everything's done during the pandemic. People are doing touchless rentals now where we don't even meet with the resident. We do it all online now. And we'll talk about the
That's
technology
new.
throughout
Yeah,
the
that
weekend.
just happened in San Antonio. That's very
Yep.
cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Anybody else?
We have one more maybe? No?
And do we have any online questions, Ember? No?
No, we're good.
Everybody's
right.
good
Thank you,
there?
guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you so
Yes,
much,
thank
Scott.
you.
Give Scott a hand. That was awesome. Appreciate it. Give him back.